Welcome to my podcast, Rashad in Conversation. Today, I'm joined by Ian McCabe. Ian is a leading expert in Quality 4.0 and the evolving landscape of assurance in the age of emerging technologies. With a deep understanding of how digital transformation is impacting traditional quality practices, Ian's work, alongside colleagues from Oakland Research Institute and the Chartered Quality Institute, has focused on understanding how quality management practices and the profession must evolve in order to thrive in this new era. Ian has worked closely with Professor John Oakland, Professor Chew Yew Wong from Leeds University Business School, and the CQI's head of profession, Mike Turner, to define Quality 4.0 and the CQI's 8 Quality 4.0 principles, as well as frameworks and strategies to address the challenges of assuring complex systems, extending enterprises and AI-driven processes. This research has highlighted the critical need for proactive, ethical, and data-driven approaches to digital transformation and assurance. I am delighted that Ian is joining me for this conversation today. I know him personally, and I'm sure this is going to be a fun chat. Hi, Ian.
Hello, how are you?
How are you doing?
I am very good, thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. I know it's been a while since we've properly connected, so I'm really loving that we're connecting over coffee with this podcast. So let the whole world enjoy this as well. Thank you
Hopefully,
very
yeah,
much for joining, Ian.
no problem.
You have some remarkable achievements and your contribution to Quality 4.0, but this is just my intro about what you've done. Why don't you share with our listeners your career journey? How did it all begin?
How did it all begin? I guess really it started at more of an apprentice role. I started doing calibration. I worked in calibration laboratory, temperature, electrical, and part of that whole it was a new organisation, and part of that whole business was trying to set up and get onto being a pre-supplier on various organisations' supply chain. So through um, that role, I got the opportunity to do lots of things around an organisation and get it certificated to 9001 and learn about what are critical aspects of quality in terms of calibration and how that works. And actually, just kind of, I didn't fall into quality. I think that's a wrong statement. I kind of found quality and realised that when you look what a job spec is and you understand who you are as an individual, that it's something that you can add value to and also that will benefit you as well. And from there, it was never going to be a long-term role. I got the opportunity to go and work for Royal Mail. Um, and again, it was a different role, but then inevitably you gravitate back towards there was an opportunity to go and work in finance, and then another 9001 certification thing came up. I'd got some experience, so you kind of put yourself forward. And I guess I always looked at opportunities and understood the value of them, even if the value wasn't immediately, going to offer a return. So never really chased money, just chased an opportunity to either do something different or add value somewhere. And that's kind of really set the course then for career. People talk about having a plan. There was the plan. The only um, thing that was certain was that I'd look at every opportunity and understand it for its merits, and then try and, when you get in there, do a good job. And I heard it once about if you're going to have talent anywhere, have talent in sort of or be good. Sorry, if you're going to be good at anything, be good at the things that require no talent. So turn up on time, use your manners, um, do a good job, give someone your best 37.5 hours that you can in a working week. And ultimately, if you do all those kind of things well, you'll end up doing a good job, right? People will forgive mistakes. I'm probably just on that. I'd say the 20s for me, my 20s were about kind of pushing hard and failing and understanding that I could fail and you'd be forgiven because you're young enough. I think your 30s are about, or for me, were really stepping up and definitely challenging yourself. But they weren't abject failures. They weren't trying to fail. You were trying to succeed, but recognizing that that success came off the back of understanding that it was never always going to be great. You were going to have downsides to what you were doing, but you had to learn from them. And then 40s were kind of like, I guess, capitalizing on that and putting it all together. But certainly for me, there's never been a case where I fell into quality. I think I found quality. I found I could do it. There was a point in time where probably as I hit about 30, I'd say, and I've been doing quality properly for 5 years. You have this moment where you go, is it for me? Because it's not always, you know, the results aren't there every day. They're not even there every month. I think I learned quickly that you have to look at whether or not you've had a good 12 months in quality, right? Whether you had a good year, whether you've added value to the business in that year. If you try and judge it on day by day, week by week, month by month, you can be disheartened and you can feel like it's not the job for you. And I definitely had that point and I sort of hit about 30 of I'm good at it, but is it what I want to do? Is it fulfilling enough? And that was the point where it's like, right, okay, no, the next decade is going to be really focusing on the profession and being a good quality professional, not doing a good job. That was kind of 20s, figuring out what's investing in sort of like doing something for you and being good at it. 30s was about investing in the career and investing in the profession and kind of being good at that and understand what that meant. That's probably a long and winding answer to your question. I've worked in lots of different industries. I've certainly never stayed in one industry. I always felt it was important to move around.
Mhm.
And I haven't stayed in one particular type of job either. I've done head of internal audit. I've done um, quality manager roles, as you'd see them, head of profession roles. I've done specialist roles. I was good at some. I was really good at some. I was bad at others, really bad at some. Um, but as I said before, I think the real talent is kind of being good at the things that require no talent. You know, turn up on time, be respectful, give 37 and a half good hours, you know. And if you want someone to invest in you, you've kind of got to invest in yourself first, I think, a little bit, and put some personal hours into your own development,
Mm.
not just with a cap out for training. And, you know, I want more. So, yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, long answer to a
No,
short
no,
question.
that's great. I like that you've never stuck with one industry and you've actually engaged with many roles in the wide array of quality management, the whole profession.
Hmm.
And yes, we as humans, we always want to strive to do our best, but recognizing that as you are on that journey, that you will make mistakes and you will learn from them, and then you will
100%.
recognize whether this is an area you want to focus on and excel in, or you'll just take that learning and that knowledge, park it and use it when you need to, but actually shift gears into somewhere else. That by itself is a is
Hmm.
a is a good career growth in on its own.
Yeah, no, certainly I've had a good career so far in terms of the the opportunities I've pursued have ended up being the right opportunities. It doesn't mean to say you're always going to be great at everything, but I think making a decision to pursue something and give it your all is probably sufficient a lot of the time. No one can doubt you put effort in, even if you don't necessarily succeed.
Mm. I like that you said be good if you want to be good at something, be good at something that requires no talent. But I'm gonna
Mhm.
scratch a little bit beyond all of that because I'm
Okay.
interested in one of your success stories with
Mhm.
all of this diverse career throughout different industries and the wide spectrum of the quality profession. What is one success story that you're proud of?
I think there's two ways to look at this. On a sort of a deeply personal level, I think probably because of how my career in quality has worked. When we had the opportunity to take on apprentices, when I had a proper job, when I worked at in nuclear, we took on two apprentices, and the objective there was to not employ two people to be in a particular job, but actually to employ two people and give them 2 years to learn the profession. Okay. And at the end of it, all we said to them is at the end of it, just make a decision and you just need whether or not the profession's for you or not. And if it's not, we won't be disappointed. We'll find you a job in the organisation. What we think you'll have is you'll have 2 years really good ground in what makes a great organisation great, right? And what makes a great product great if you've understood the profession properly. And you'll be an advocate for what we do. And so that was Vic and Owen, who you'll know really well, Victoria Derbyshire, Owen Tennant, and they've gone on and had tremendous careers in quality of their own efforts, right? This is not me trying to lay claim to anything they've achieved. The only thing I would sort of say is we were very clear and transparent with them about what opportunity was. It was an opportunity to learn for 2 years, and realise where they fit within the profession, and they would fit in different roles in reality, and they have. Um, and then probably just quietly in the background, giving them encouragement when they needed it, and probably putting the brakes on a little bit when they needed that too, I think, and giving them a sense of perspective. But that's probably on a personal level, the greatest success is we took two people who didn't fall into quality. They, with their eyes wide open, applied for a job, or applied for a role within the profession, and have then taken that and kind of flourished. And they are both brilliant individuals, by the way.
Hmm.
They are, when we recruited them, we recruited on behaviours first. We talked about your basket, your competency basket. Okay. So we about behaviours and attitudes, the B and the A, skills, knowledge, experience and training. And what we said to them is the next 2 years are filling your basket. You bring the B and the A, right? Behaviours and attitudes. We can't give you those. And if you don't have those, there'll be a hole in your basket and all the skills and the knowledge and experience and training will fall out. Okay. So we talked about this basket, and they had behaviours and attitudes. They have behaviours and attitudes in abundance. And that is why their basket is full right now. So that's the personal one. I think from a professional one, I'm really pleased with the work we're doing on Quality 4. There was skepticism, not just for myself, about Quality 4 when we were first asked to do the research. Um, I'm proud of it in terms of what we've achieved with it. I think in the research, yes. In some of the development, yes. Where does it go? Will it have any cast a long shadow over the profession and be something that's useful for years to come? I mean, we'll wait and see. So I'm not proud of the end result yet because I don't think we're there, but I'm proud of what we've done to date for sure.
Well, Ian, thank you very much for sharing those success stories. I will just comment on a couple of things because
Hmm.
when you talk about the competency basket and behavior and attitudes,
Hmm.
you hear a lot of people talking about all of that, but to bring in an example that actually clarifies and sheds the light on the importance of behaviors and attitudes, and I'm not going to talk about this about a leader
Hmm.
as a leader. I'm going to talk about it as an individual, me as Rashad, who started this
Hmm.
career. And one of the
Hmm.
great things I've encountered in my own career within the quality profession early days was to have somebody who was a quality leader that taught me how to focus on behaviors and attitudes and how to nurture
Hmm.
those in me as an individual and how the rest will follow.
Hmm.
Those leaders are not commonly available, unfortunately. So it takes a human to interact with another human, and that's where when you see that you're working with individuals who have those behaviors and attitudes, and then they are actually acknowledging them, and then they're working on other competency skills to grow. This is how the chain continues because you can bet yourself that those people will continue to work with others on behaviors and attitudes as well, rather than just competency skills.
No, 100%. And I just one point on that, I would say that so obviously I've got senior roles in organisations and looked after quality teams. And I'll tell you now that the only time I've had complaints about quality professionals has been on the behaviours attitude side. It's not about the skills, the knowledge, the experience, and the training. No one comes to you and says they're not competent in terms of they don't know what they're talking about in relation to that standard or that requirement. It will be about how that message was conveyed and how they sort of talked about the problem and dealt with it and spoke to individuals. And those complaints aren't many, by the way.
Mhm.
They're few and far between, thankfully. But when you do get them, people won't say, I don't like his attitude. I don't like the way he behaved. I don't like what he just said. I don't like the way they said that. So very rarely is it on the technical point where someone, comes to you and says, technically they're incorrect. It's
Yeah.
always about behaviours and attitudes, or typically about behaviours and attitude. And certainly there was a thing where when you're working with the team, as a little behaviour correction, it was okay. So from this point forward, we don't say no to people. We say yes, but. Our job is to say yes, but. Well, you can do that, but have you thought about this issue? Have you
Hmm.
thought about this consequence, right? So I think that's just another thing of it's all right talking about behaviours attitudes, but in terms of little nudges here and there, just little things like that have been useful for me. It doesn't work with everybody. Sometimes you do get people that will not change, and
Of
that
course, of
I'm
course.
minded of change the person or change the person. Sometimes has been the
Yes, yeah, yeah. But I mean, th those are not recipes that will fit
no,
in
no,
every single context. They will fit in the
no,
majority of
but
it,
they're
but
useful
there's
things.
always
Yeah,
contextual things.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
To all of our listeners and viewers, this is when I ask Ian about a lesson learned that he benefited from throughout his career. But you are in today for a treat because Ian has been fully supportive of the Quality 4.0 research and the principles that were published by the CQI. I sat around the table with Ian at the board of the CQI a few years back and with the Governance and Risk Committee. And I was one of the quality professionals who have used the Quality 4.0 principles in my day-to-day role and deployed some of those key principles that were introduced that sort of shifts the mindset of how we interact with an organization as a whole rather than specific toolkits that are available or tool sets that we have. So that's why I'm really excited about this conversation. And Ian, I would like to ask you about since the release of Quality 4.0 and the
hmm
future of assurance working in those digital environment, how has your perspective on this topic evolved? Has there been any key trends that you've observed since?
Yeah, great question. So initially, I've got to admit, I was somewhat skeptical about this concept of quality four when I was first asked to sort of take part in a research program along with John and Chi, and I question whether, okay, is this really a distinct thing, or is it just another buzzword? And certainly at the time when it was being talked about, you could have easily just dismissed it as another buzzword. And there was cynicism, I think, in the profession too. And certainly when the research was released initially, some were dismissing it as snake oil. And that's to be expected. You're going to get a variety of opinions on this. But I think my involvement with the research team helped me to change that perspective for myself. So I could have easily just said, well, I'm not getting involved in the research. I don't think there's anything in it. Or actually, what I said before about opportunities, you look at it and go, well, it's an opportunity to understand for myself properly whether or not this is a thing. And it became undeniable, I think, that irrespective of the label, the rapid advancement of emerging technologies, so things like artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, blockchain, would profoundly reshape quality and quality management practices. And there was a need, therefore, for our profession to be proactive and evolve in response to this change and to do that very quickly. Okay, so there was, as quickly as the technology changes, we're going to need to evolve. In terms of trends, I think a few things stand out. Firstly, that proliferation of artificial intelligence has accelerated at a pace that even our research team didn't fully anticipate when we did that research. And I think that would go for anybody in business. It's like it's
Mhm.
really just taken off. Secondly, there definitely is now a growing recognition within the quality profession that we need to significantly enhance our digital competence. You might not talk about it as quality form. There are conversations about we need to be digitally competent or data literate. And that's necessary to effectively leverage these technologies if we're going to use them properly, both to improve the quality of management of the organisation, but also to improve the quality of the products and services that we offer. And finally, I think it's become imperative. We talked about CQI earlier and our roles within it, and they've varied. Um, but it's imperative that the CQI accelerate the development of relevant resources and guidance to equip the membership and to make sure that we keep pace with this rapid rate of
Mhm.
change. I think that's altered how um, these assets are developed and provided to the profession. Before it was some of the established quality tools, and we'd revisit them. We're seeing the tools evolve and the way in which we approach the subject evolve at a rapid rate. I think the CQI is doing a tremendous job of just keeping on top of that and keeping the messages fresh and keeping the knowledge and the learning fresh.
I do remember when the research came out, there was a lot of talk of, oh, are these principles going to replace the traditional principles of
Yeah,
quality? And the answer is no. There's nothing about just replace. There's nothing about switch this button off and switch this on, and then that's it, make that shift. It's all about really responding to the evolving environment that we live in right now.
100%.
We were talking about the entire digital environment is still in our world today if I can call it a baby environment. When we talk about manufacturing and construction and pharmaceuticals, those are centuries old. The
Yeah.
frameworks have been going on for decades and centuries. When we talk about the digital era, it's only 4 decades, 3 decades,
Hmm.
and it's
Yeah.
progressed significantly in this current decade. So there's a lot of navigation and adjustment, but not to replace a solid
That's it.
foundation of the framework.
No, and I think that's really important you picked up on that point because I sat down and did that mapping. So there's a tool out there where we take the seven established quality management principles and the eight of quality four, and I sat down and mapped all that out, okay, and justified why what the mapping was, whether it was core, direct, indirect, why that relationship was what it was. It then went back out to the research team, back out to Mike Turner. It was double checked, you know, and we went through it piece by piece. And at no point was there any conversation about how do we replace the quality management principles. It was never that. It was about what's the next evolution in quality, and therefore what do we need to do to sort of keep these seven principles relevant in the digital age? Well, okay, let's talk about the quality 4.08 principles and show that um, if you manage data properly and you look at issues like transparency and ethics, etc. What's the impact on customer focus? Okay, what's the relationship
Absolutely.
there with customers? So,
Absolutely.
so yeah, it's great that you picked up on that because there was never a conversation in that research team about how do we replace what we've got. It was about the next evolution of quality and whether, what did that look like?
And for everybody who's joining us in this conversation, just so as you know that the Quality 4.0 research and the eight principles that Ian's talking about are available on the CQI's website, quality.org. We'll talk a little bit
Hmm.
later on about more in-depth information, but just that
Yep.
research and the mapping of the principles and the standard foundational quality, service quality principles, that is available and you can read it as well.
Hmm.
Ian, there's a growing recognition that the profession needs education on Quality 4.0 and the future of assurance from how we
Hmm.
know it to where it's going. What are some of the main misconceptions and areas of confusion that you've encountered regarding these concepts?
Yeah, again, so you're right. I mean, there is a real need for education in this space. There's no doubt about that. And that's something that the CQI is addressing through articles in Quality World and through the development of a suite of e-learning courses, which we'll come on to that later because that's a really big thing. I think a lot of over the years, a lot of messages and learning and knowledge come through Quality World, and the team have done a phenomenal job. Like evolve the way that publications evolved over time actually
Hmm.
is worthy of note, right? So um, but I think the next iteration is certainly about the e-learning courses and the learning hub and how that's going to evolve. So I'll come to that. But as I said before, one of the main misconceptions I've encountered, certainly early on with Cool was the idea that it was just snake oil, a trendy label with little substance. I now strongly disagree with that. I understood it at the time, but I now strongly disagree with that. I think to dismiss potentially valuable learning simply because you're skeptical of a label is too superficial and short-sighted, and not really what our profession is about. Okay, our profession is about understanding and being inquisitive and curious and not dismissing things. So the reality is that emerging digital technologies are fundamentally reshaping the workplace, they're reshaping our lives. As quality professionals, it's our responsibility to understand how these technologies can be leveraged and leveraged to improve outcomes for all stakeholders, whether that's customers, employees, shareholders, and crucially, to help organizations recognize and control those inherent risks. So fundamentally, our day job hasn't changed, right? The context within which we do it has changed, and that's important to recognize. And the CQI's research into 24 and the future assurance research was the CQI recognized and responded to this need. They probably just did it a little bit earlier than probably if we were doing it now, I'm going to say, well, you're a bit late. Okay, when we did it at the beginning, and everyone's like, I don't even think it's a thing. Well, not everyone, but the skeptics there say, I don't think it's a
Mhm.
thing. I think that's the CQI being right on the button in terms of time in its research. And a lot of credit, therefore, goes to the likes of Mike Turner and Alex as well, at the CQI, in terms of judging when's the right time to invest in research and development. I think in terms of confusion, that's slightly different. So that can sometimes come from those engaging with quality for and the future of assurance research. And what I mean by that is when we initially published the 8 principles of quality for, we even referred to them at the time as emerging principles. So there's an acknowledgement from the research team that the full implications and deployment strategies would require time and effort to unpack. So when you first read the 8 principles, you're like, I need to read them again. Okay. And we said as a research team, go away. This should really prompt you to go and learn more, right? This is not the end point. This should just
Mhm.
kind of make you go, there's a shift here, and then you just understand it. Um, and since then, as I took the development role on in the CQI, we've invested significant time in codifying these principles, refining the CQI's e-learning courses, and rethinking about how we present them. So during that time, as we've looked at reinvigorating the Quality for 8 principles course and identifying new ones, our own understanding of the topic's increased, and we've come to recognise that some principles might be more accurately described as enabling principles. So there are some of those 8 which are essentially foundational requirements of quality for data, being an example of one of the principles that sort of is required to be a foundational element.
Mhm.
And there are others um, that are application principles that are focused on the deployment of the technology across the value chain. And we've also realized that to explore the many ways in which this technology is affecting and will affect the management of quality across the value chain, we need to create virtual case studies as well. So you talked before about, okay, um, I've worked with quality for the case study was done as part of the research. What we found as we've done the training courses is if we were to take all the elements of quality for and show how they map to a value chain, we'd be looking at an organization over here to explain one principle, another organization in a different environment to explain another principle. And people would get lost. They'd be jumping around different organizations and different value chains. We've created um, around these e-learning courses, these virtual case studies of one organization that we're going to follow, completely virtual organization. And you'll be able to work through that and understand how this organization created is planning to implement quality for, has implemented
Excellent.
quality for. Um, and we've done that also to anonymize it because I think there are still companies out there, you'll know who I mean, that might be leading in the tech space, but not necessarily leading in the ethical or moral space. And so we can't really pick on those brands and say, look at what they're doing on Quality 4, because it's not really what Quality 4 is about. Quality 4 is as much about ethics and making the right calls as it is about utilization of technology. So it's important that we've been able to do that in these virtual case studies.
The CQI, the Chartered Quality Institutes, operates under a royal charter, and the main aim
Mhm.
of that charter is to promote and progress quality management for the benefit of society. So you
Yeah,
cannot divorce ethics, integrity from
no,
principles that operate. They come in hand. And I
yeah,
have never encountered a quality professional in all of the countries I've operated in that disagrees with that concept. When you talk
yeah,
about quality management, when you talk about the quality profession, you are talking about integrity, about ethics, and about helping businesses do the right thing right. So not
yeah.
just with intentions, but also implementing and deploying it. Ian, I'm very conscious of time, but I have 2 more questions.
So that's fine.
I'm very interested to learn from what you've witnessed as well. So I'll start
Hmm.
with organizations. So organizations
Hmm.
who operate in environment 4.0, whether they acknowledge
Hmm.
it or not, how can they take on implementing those quality 4.0 principles to progress their business?
Yeah, another good question. So I think as we've developed the e-learning courses, for me, it's been helpful to approach the practical steps of quality for implementation in terms of thinking about 4 core elements. So the first element is quality for and digital transformation. So the focus here is establishing the foundation, really. Organizations need to start by aligning the quality goals with the broader digital transformation strategy. They are mutually exclusive. So this is involving assessing the current digital maturity, of which there are lots of tools out there that have been published
Mhm.
on how to do that. Identifying areas where quality can drive digital initiatives or benefit from them. Developing a roadmap for integrating quality into the overall transformation journey. So we point a lot in the research to quality professionals needing to understand what the digital transformation strategy is and understanding where quality fits within it. The cultural readiness is also key, being able to evaluate and adapt the organizational culture to be more agile and data driven. And I know Mike Turner's done a lot in terms of webinars on quality culture, and that's no coincidence. So that's the first element. The second element is about leveraging these emerging technologies. So the focus here is on practical adoption. So organizations should begin by identifying specific use cases where emerging technologies can address quality challenges. I've worked with organizations that are doing that. It's not necessarily straightforward or easy, but it's certainly the case that they exist. And we need to understand, well, if we implemented some technology or use technology in this scenario, what's the benefit? What's required to do it well? So pilot projects are crucial for testing and validating these technologies, whether it be IoT sensors or automation, and doing that in a controlled environment. And as quality officials getting involved in those projects, I think is really important. So a structured approach to evaluating and selecting the right technology is essential. Again, there's lots of help out there if you go and search the internet. And we've tried to weave them into the courses that we've written, and considering factors like scalability and integration are sort of key elements within that. The third element is data and information. And I think this element underscores the fact that data is the lifeblood of quality for. It's the
Mhm.
lifeblood of quality. The reality is it shouldn't. The format of the data has changed, let's be honest. And that's in terms of practical steps, that includes breaking down data silos, trying to create that unified view of quality data, like good data that can be utilized. Investing in digital tools for data analysis and visualization. And I've certainly seen quality professionals starting to use things like Power BI, but we're talking about kind of real data visualization, understand that in depth, and particularly implementing training programs to enhance this data literacy across the workforce. We've picked up on that in the research as well. Data governance and security are also important here. So I know I've worked with 27001, for example, but it's a great starting point for quality professionals to sort of drift into that sort of space. And then the fourth element is governance and compliance. That will come as no surprise. And this is about the ethical and responsible implementation of quality
Mm.
for what you said earlier. You can't do the other three well and not do the last bit. Okay.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
organizations need to develop ethical frameworks to guide the use of these technologies. Now, the reality is they will have ethical frameworks because they will have a value, a set of values as an organization. But what they need to do is understand how technology might um, affect these values and whether or not it's
Support,
kind of compromise
facilitate,
them.
or potentially block. And they need to be aware of
Exactly,
that.
exactly. And so they need to sort of pay close attention to data privacy, potential biases in AI, and the impact on the workforce as well. So this idea of does the technology replace me, right? Is there a fear factor there? And though there needs to be real transparency in how these technologies are used, that's vital, along with adapting the quality management systems that you have to meeting the evolving regulatory requirements in the digital age as well. So if you're
Mm.
going to use drones, for example, in last mile delivery, within your organization, well, guess what? Civil aviation regulations suddenly become something that, as a quality professional, you need to be familiar with.
A stakeholder to
So
consider,
it's
yeah.
being aware of things like that. Yeah.
That's
So
you
those are the
really.
four elements for me. Yeah.
No, that's brilliant because you bring in a lot of valid points, and I think my take on it from what you've shared as well is one key takeaway is data underpins everything, and this
Mhm.
is not a new concept. If you are a quality professional, let's say you've worked with the Deming framework and you fully
Mhm.
understand it, and you're going, well, you understand the importance of data. The only difference right now is we're tweaking our knowledge and approach to data on the scale that it's available right now because technologies facilitated that massive amount of data to be present. And that's
Yep.
where the
Yep.
governance, security, and ethical use of it comes in. So
Yep.
that's very, very important. The other aspect for organizations who are looking to do that transformation and start to implement Quality 4.0, from what I've experienced is my first message to all leaders in such organizations is guess what? You've already started. Even though you
Hmm.
don't know it, you've started. Work has happened. So don't think of this transformation as something you need to switch the on button now. It's not the case. It's happened, it's happening, and it's happening between different business owners. So what you need
Yeah,
when doing Quality 4.0 is to engage with quality professionals who can connect all of those dots and bring to the surface those different areas so you can make well-informed decisions for the successful of that transformation. But don't
yeah,
ever miss the fact that you haven't started and you need resource to start. This is happening in the organization now, and it's
yeah,
growing at a pace you might not even imagine.
yeah, yeah. No, 100%. I think that's it about the label not being important. Whether you call it quality for or not, technology is emerging technology being used by your organization. You know, whether you call it quality for or not, how you leverage it.
Brilliant. And then the final question I have, Ian, is that we talked about
Okay.
what organizations need to do to sort of
Yeah.
embrace and leverage that. Now I'm going to shift from your experience, and in your opinion, what do quality professionals need to do to support that transition?
Um, yeah. I mean uh, that's a crucial question. It's one that's asked before, and the message hasn't really changed. I highlighted in an article in Quality World in 2023, just after we completed the Future Short research, that it was about focusing on the doing, being proactive and embracing technologies rather than resisting them. So that message hasn't changed. Certainly, the role of quality professional is evolving, and you see that with the sort of the outputs from the CQI in terms of typical role profiles and how that the quality force just weaved into that. I think to remain relevant, we need to broaden our horizons significantly. To the point you've just said, the technology's there, it's being utilised by the organisation. You might be happy sat in this particular lane, but the business is moving on, so you need to kind of broaden
Mhm.
your horizons. I think the work the team at the CQI is doing on developing profession map and typical role profiles is a great way for corporate professionals to understand what this means in practice. So I'd encourage people to come and look at that and understand what it means for them. But there are a few things that alongside that I'd probably highlight. So the first would be about staying informed. I think that's paramount. It's not enough, and I said this to the apprentices when to Vic and Owen when they first came in, it's not enough to be passive. Don't be passive to your environment. Okay, you've got to get on the front foot. Don't wait for updates. We need to actively sort of keep abreast of the latest trends in AI, machine learning, IoT, blockchain, and other emerging technologies. So that means following industry news, attending a diverse range of conferences, not just drinking from one particular industry backwater or whatever, and participating in webinars outside of our immediate profession. So if you sign up for things like the Information Commissioner's Office, still there's webinars on there, and you can go and you can find out about what's happening in the world of data privacy, for example. I think second, we need to look beyond traditional quality management courses for our CPD. That doesn't necessarily mean we need to look outside of the CQI. What the CQI is doing with the Learning Hub is it's partnering with other organisations to bring in training courses and learning opportunities that are still available through the CQI Learning Hub, but are pulling from things like the IT profession, for instance, the British Computer Society, that type of thing. Um, so I think that's really important. And investing in learning development related to these specific technologies and new roles is essential. So understanding what machine learning is, blockchain is, and IoT and automation. The third is nothing new. Networking is kind of vital, but we need to connect with experts and practitioners in emerging technologies and gain insights and exchange knowledge. So again, that's part of the broaden horizons. Fourth would be about the cross-functional collaboration being important, more important than ever. So as the quality core research showed, quality professionals can be a key link between process owners and technology. I think that's our sweet spot really
Mhm.
in terms of quality four. We need to really work and collaborate with colleagues from different departments, IT, data science, understanding data science as a discipline, understanding what that role is, I think is really important. The R&D element of the organization, understanding where they're taking the evolution of a product or service that they've got and how technology is going to integrate that is important. And gaining exposure, understanding how these technologies can be or are being applied in various contexts is important. We need to gain hands-on experience with emerging technologies through projects, pilot initiatives, like I talked about earlier.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
even if that means doing it in your spare time, I know that's painful sometimes, you're getting paid to do it, but actually, if you get an opportunity that's going to benefit you in the future, you are being paid, you're just not being paid yet, right? So invest in yourself. And then I think the element in terms of upskilling data management is crucial. So, as you said earlier, data plays such a critical role in many emerging technologies. We need to develop skills in data analysis, data privacy, and handling data-driven processes. Understanding frameworks like 27001, like I said before, is a great starting point. It's not the end, but it's a great starting point. And then finally, I think you touched on it at the start of this podcast, but not forgetting soft skills. So as technology automates routine tasks, human skills such as communication, problem solving, critical thinking, adaptability are more critical than ever, right? Being human is now a really valuable and useful
Mhm.
commodity. Technology is not evolved to the point where it can replicate human wisdom, and it certainly doesn't possess that hard-earned human instinct to question, resist, and doubt when it matters most. And I think that's where good quality professionals strike that balance really well. So that'd be sort of the points I'd raise on in terms of things you can do. I would just say, I know we've sort of been close on time. I just want to point out there are resources out there. I've talked about the Learning Hub. So if you want to know more about Quality 4 and the future assurance, there are several valuable resources. We are working on a suite of courses at the moment that we're going to turn. This is a world first for you. You can have it here. The Quality 4 Readiness Program. So we're trying to look at a tiered program of training that people will be able to take. It will have in the courses that I've talked about earlier, but it will cover things like the potential of AI, discovering the potential of AI, which is a course we released last year.
Mhm.
Applying the eight principles of Quality 4 will be in there. Quality 4 Digital Transformation, the relevant professions, another course that's currently in the pipeline. The regulation of emerging technologies is in there. And they're all being developed into e-learning courses by the CQI's own in-house team. So a massive thank you and kudos to Emma Vivek. If she's listening, she is brilliant at turning all the content that I've pulled together into really, really good, excellent e-learning courses. I think I know and you know what the CQI does, sort of behind the quality world and the publication that gets sent out and the people who do the job that they do. And it really is people like Emma that kind of turn all the wild thoughts that we have into something that is a really useful asset. So look out for that. Really excited about the Quality 4 in this program. The title might change before it's finalised, but it's certainly something that I'd encourage anyone who's listening or watching to sort of be prepared and keep their eye out for any announcements about that in the coming months. It will be hopefully something that's a CQI-backed capability that we can kind of uh, use within the profession as some marker of I am quality for already at different levels. So I think that'd be great. If we
Excellent.
can pull that off, then it'll be phenomenal.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, Ian, thank you so much for this brilliant conversation. But
No
in the
problem.
podcast's tradition, I'm going to ask you quick fire questions for people to get to know
Okay.
Ian as a person
Oh,
rather than
okay.
that quality professional. Coffee or tea?
One coffee first thing in the morning and then tea.
Okay, a train ride or a flight?
Oh, fly.
A flight. Cinema or theater?
Cinema.
And back to the travel topic, beach
Hmm.
holiday or a city break?
I mean, the beach, but I'm happy with either. Yeah, yeah.
But one?
I like balance. Beach, beach. Yeah,
Beach holiday all
yeah.
the time. Fantastic. Well,
Hmm.
Ian, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for sharing all of your insights in this exciting conversation. You have been listening to Rashad in Conversation with me, your host, Rashad Isa. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit subscribe, follow, or download as I bring you monthly guests from around the world to share their stories of the quality profession.
Brilliant. Cheers. Thank you, Rashad. Thanks for your time.